The protagonist of our story spent his entire life serving the Empire, to return to his homeland, but he was met with betrayal, and was ultimately disposed of. However, thanks to an artifact, he was reborn as an infant into one of the noble families. He decided to use this opportunity to take revenge. Using his knowledge and the new power he gained as a necromancer, he became the family's genius and set off on his journey. The events begin on Earth in the year 2045. In the midst of a chaotic battle between soldiers and monsters, a soldier is shown being wounded in battle from a monster's attack, which inflicts a fatal wound to his chest. A huge, terrifying monster looms over the remaining soldiers. The fallen soldier looks up helplessly, wondering if this is the end. Before the monster attacks him, our hero Han Song appears, saving the warrior at the last moment, and fighting fiercely with his sword. The massive monster launches multiple attacks, simultaneously towards Han Song. Han Song is shown skillfully, weaving his way through the monster's successive attacks. He avoids a sudden blow that almost hit him, and he fires his weapon to take out one of the monster's tentacles. Han Song calls out to the soldier he saved. We realize he is the supreme commander of the last defense force on Earth, and he urges the soldier to get up and keep moving. The soldier gets up, confirming he heard the order, and returns to the battle using his rifle. The scene shows the endless swarms of monsters, indicating the decades-long war between humanity and monsters. Han Song explains that there are only a few monsters left in front of them, and that he is finally in front of his target, rushing forward. But as he arrives in front of the last monster, a huge golden magic circle suddenly appears before him, shocking him. Han Song wonders, in shock, about the nature of the golden magic circle that appeared before him. One of the commander's soldiers calls out in confusion, shocked by his sudden disappearance. Han Song hears a voice ordering him to respond to the call, and suddenly magical golden chains bind him. The man who summoned Han Song appears, an old magician, expressing his astonishment at the successful summoning, and excited to see the hero from another world. He had only heard about the bound. Han Song wonders about these glowing shackles and where he is. The old magician welcomes him to the Empire as the hero from another world, and suddenly, the magician asks Han Song to defeat the Demon King and save their world. Han Song responds with disdain, considering this talk madness, and asks angrily about his identity, the identity of those speaking to him and his location, insisting he is in Korea and has no time for this nonsense. The magician sharply cuts him off, ordering him to be silent. He then activates the magical covenant bond Gias, causing Han Song intense pain that makes him scream. The magician tells him that if he had listened when asked nicely, the magic wouldn't have hurt him. Han Song suffers from the pain, thinking angrily that the magician never asked him nicely. The magician repeats his request to defeat the evil Demon King, and asks him to save the Empire, as a sword lies on the ground before him. The magician adds that, if Han Song does this, then perhaps they can return him to his world. He then asks him if he will accept their request. Han Song agrees, forced, and so. Han Song recounts how he was summoned to an empire in another world, and began a new battle as the hero. He describes how he fought relentlessly, and went on endless suppression missions. He spent his time slicing and slaughtering over and over, fulfilling the Empire's endless requests. 3 years passed, then 5, then 10 years, as he continued to fight for the Empire against the Demon King's army. He recalls sacrificing his youth to finally defeat the Demon King, Baylor dreaming every night of returning home, believing he had finally earned his freedom. However, as soon as he finished his mission, the same old magician came to him with a new task. Han Song protested, insisting this was nonsense and violated their agreement, but the magician replied that saving the Empire doesn't end with killing the Demon King. He explained to him that those who opposed the War of Unification must also be eliminated, to prevent the rise of rebels, and that there was only one last threat left for Han Song to deal with. The target was a dangerous individual named Bodil, from the Teutonia Night Nation. The magician promised him he would get his freedom after eliminating this man. The magician asked him with a manipulative tone if he would help them for just a little longer. Han Song thought bitterly that he had no choice. He was just a chained dog, and he cursed them silently. The scene shifts to the burning Teutonia Night Nation, where Han Song wonders when this slavery will end. And in the midst of the battle against battle, Han Song manages to stab him with his sword. Han Song confronts his opponent Battle, who calls him naive. Han Song replies that he has no other choice. Han Song apologizes to Sir Battle, and Battle recognizes him, mentioning he is the hero from another world. Han Song, the wounded Battle, tells him, as he falls to the ground, not to feel sorry, because he too will be disposed of soon. Han Song thinks it's over, and he can finally go back. But suddenly, Count Brandenburg appears behind him. Hansong is shocked, as the Count congratulates him on a job well done. He stabs him in the back with his sword. The shocked Hansong recognizes the identity of the man who stabbed him. It is Count Brandenburg. The Count praises Han Seong, acknowledging that, as the commander-in-chief, and the Empire's holy knight, he fought bravely to the end, but adds mockingly, that it's rare to see a hunting dog with such loyalty. Han Seong realizes the bitter truth, calling the Count a bastard, and confirms that the promise of returning him to Earth was a lie. The Count wonders about the use of keeping a hunting dog that might turn and bite its master. The Count bids Han Seong farewell, and as he falls to the ground, he thinks that he knew they wouldn't let him go peacefully, and curses them all, and as he breathes his last, and the gem of resurrection glows in his chest, Han Seong swears he will never forget this humiliation, and that the empire that deceived him will pay the price with its destruction. That night, Han Seong's life closes its eyes while another life opens its eyes. Congratulations to the Duchess on the birth of her son Dale. The Duchess looks tenderly at the newborn, telling him she is his mother. The newborn Han Seong looks at her and at the man standing beside her, and feels that the woman looks familiar. Suddenly he remembers and recognizes the man. It's Duke Jackson, greatest necromancer and dark magician in the Empire. Han Seong realizes this means he is in Necropolis, the Empire's center for black magic, and specifically in the Black Magic Tower. He remembers that the Resurrection Stone, which allows only one reincarnation, had worked. He had hidden the stone in secret during his days as a hunting dog, as a way to one day break his leash, and the fate of his new birth was left to destiny, and destiny made him the eldest son of the Duke of Jackson family, one of the highest noble families in the Empire. The infant smiles, happy to be born with a golden spoon. He secretly vows that once he grows up and learns necromancy, he will annihilate those damned Imperials. Duke Jackson notices that the baby isn't crying. The worried Duchess asks the nurse to check him closely, and the nurse notes that it's strange, and his breathing is very clear. The infant Dale thinks to himself that, of course he won't cry, wondering what age they think he is. The nurse reassures the Duchess that his breathing is stable, and there's no need to worry. But the Duke wonders anxiously if the silent newborn is a bad omen. The nurse tells him not to worry, but it adds that if they are really worried about him not crying, they should just slap him until he does. The nurse proceeds to slap the infant. Much to his shock, the infant Dale lets out angry, muffled sounds with each slap. The Duke comments that he's a stubborn child, and the Duchess adds that he must have inherited his stubbornness. The Duchess smiles and asks for the baby to be given to her to try, while Dale thinks angrily that they are fools, tells them in his mind that their son is fine. The Duchess pulls back from slapping the infant Dale, who looks at her in shock and thinks angrily, damn it instead. His mother holds him gently, and as a warm hand touches his small cheek, Han Seong suddenly remembers something. He remembers that he had long forgotten what warmth felt like, as shown in a previous shot of him sitting alone, and as he feels the gentle touch and affection from his young, noble mother Han Seong, who never shed a tear in his previous life and was emotionless, can do nothing but cry loudly. But 8 years passed since Dale's birth. The Duke and his wife are talking in their room, where he comments that time seems to pass quickly, and his wife agrees. The Duchess asks if Dale is still in the study, noting that he has been buried in books since he was 4. The Duke jokes that he must take after her. The Duke tells his wife seriously that Dale seems interested in magic, and the Duchess reminds him of the promise he made to her. The Duke confirms that he remembers his promise, not to pass on necromancy to Dale, as the latter is shown reading in the library. The Duchess confirms that he remembers, and the Duke reassures her. The Duke tells her not to worry, and they begin discussing Dale's birthday gift for tomorrow. Their conversation is interrupted by a knock on the door, and he wonders who it is at this hour. A maid bursts into the room, calling for the Duke, and tells them in panic that something is happening to the young master, Dale, in the study. The Duke and Duchess are shocked and rush to the library, calling for Dale and asking if he is okay. If they find Dale kneeling on the floor, surrounded by a huge aura of blue mana, he calls out to his parents, and they shout his name in shock. The Duchess rushes to hug Dale, asking him worriedly if he is hurt and what happened, but he reassures her that he is fine. The Duke stands thoughtfully, noting that he can feel the mana in the air. He thinks in amazement how Dale, who just turned 8, is already capable of this. Then he calls out to his son. The Duke asks his son seriously if he was the one who released the mana from his body. Dale panics internally, realizing he made a mistake and that they will find this strange. Dale thinks that he didn't even know he could release mana so quickly, and worries that they might suspect his true identity if he doesn't answer quickly. But the Duke smiles and pats Dale's head, saying, "This is my boy." The Duke adds that it's a pity he can't teach him necromancy. Dale is shocked, thinking, I can't learn necromancy from my father, and wonders anxiously about his revenge. The Duchess asks Dale to return to his room, assuring him that the servants will clean up the mess. As Dale leaves, the Duke calls out to his wife Elena, and tells her, with a smile, that he just thought of a suitable gift for him. Later at Dale's birthday banquet, the nobles gather, commenting that all the nobles of the Black Duke's region are present. At this grand banquet, guests wonder when the young lord will appear. On the second floor of the banquet hall, Dale sits alone, feeling bored by the noise. Noting that the party seems to be running late, he thinks how exhausting it is for all these people to gather, just to celebrate his birthday. He attributes his strange feeling to being used to poor treatment during his time as the hero, and that being treated as a young master still feels awkward to him. He is preoccupied not with the party, but with his worry about the desk he destroyed a few days ago. He remembers how his mana went completely out of control, just by thinking about his past life as the hero. Wondering curiously, who left him that biography of the hero, he decides that his current body is too talented to give up on the idea of learning necromancy. He wonders how to convince his father, remembering he heard his father mention a gift. He thinks about asking to learn necromancy as a gift, but quickly dismisses the idea, realizing his parents' gazes make it impossible. As he is lost in despair, his mother, Duchess Elena, arrives and tells him he has waited long enough. Dale greets his mother and she wishes him a happy 8th birthday. He notices someone standing behind his mother and asks who it is. His mother encourages him to go ahead and greet them. His mother introduces the guest. She is one of the elders of the Blue Magic Tower, an elf lady named Ms. Sabia, the wise spirit and expert in water element magic. His mother announces that Miss Sabia will be his new teacher. Dale is shocked as she steps forward, saying she looks forward to working with him. His mother wishes him a happy birthday again. Dale quickly analyzes the situation. They have appointed him a teacher from a magic tower. He concludes that they plan to make him learn water element magic, known for its focus on defense and disruption, which confirms to him that his mother is truly determined to keep him away from dark magic. Later, Miss Sabia asks to speak with Dale alone, and he agrees. Sabia confirms to him that she was hired to teach him only water element magic. She asks him shrewdly if he feels disappointed, guessing that he wanted to learn another kind of magic. Dale is surprised by her perceptiveness, and Sabia explains that it's natural for him to want to learn necromancy and his father's dark magic. She adds that the condition of the Black Duke's marriage is a well-known fact throughout the Empire. Sabia tells him the story when the Duke was courting Lady Elena. She was afraid of his dark reputation. For her sake, he promised he would not pass on his work to his children. Sabia recalls the wedding day, when the elders of the Black Magic Tower attended, wearing pure white instead of their usual black robes. She explains that this marriage was founded on that vow, so learning dark magic will be difficult for now. But she promises him she will find a way to convince Lady Elena in the future. She asks him for the time being to follow her teachings. Ale counters with a question. He reminds her that as an elf, she values the laws of nature, and asks her if she doesn't find black magic and necromancy, raising the dead, to be abominable. Sabia smiles, considering his question interesting. She replies with another question, asking him about the holy power of priests that also raises the dead, and asks him if that is considered the will of nature. Dale is surprised by the response. Sabia asserts that in her eyes, necromancy and resurrection look exactly the same. Dale realizes she is very different from the usual stubborn elves, and thinks she might be a good teacher. Sabia suggests they begin their lesson. She mentions she heard he formed fragments of a mana circle a few days ago, and their first goal is to expand those fragments to form his first circle. Dale welcomes the idea, as all the magic books he read require the first circle, and this is a perfect opportunity to form it. Sabia asks him to place his hand on his heart and concentrate. As he begins to concentrate, Sabia explains to him that this world, unlike Earth, is full of mana. But unless a person is an ancient being like a dragon, it is impossible to handle raw, unprocessed mana. For this reason, one needs something to filter and process that raw mana, which is the mana circle in the heart. He concludes the first lesson by explaining the process. He must gather the scattered mana circle fragments around his heart, assemble them, and then make the completed circle rotate steadily around the heart. Dale understands his teacher Sabia's explanation, realizing that the circle is an engraving of the mana flow path on the heart. Sabia asks him to start slowly practicing, rotating the mana around his heart. Sabia notes that this usually takes a month, and advises him not to rush, but Dale interrupts her. Dale tells her hesitantly that he thinks he succeeded, and Sabia looks at him in shock. Sabia wonders in amazement if it's possible for a child who just started training to create a complete circle within minutes. She realizes this can only happen if the child possesses a heaven-sent talent. Sabia asks Dale to try releasing his magical power through the circle he formed. Dale agrees, while Sabia thinks that a normal child would struggle just to push mana through the circle. Dale, with Hansi Young's consciousness, thinks that this level is not enough to get revenge on the Empire, or match Duke Jackson. He remembers that in his past life, he used deadly combat magic, thanks to the seals engraved on his body. But this time, it's different. He realizes that his new body, which inherited the talent of the Black Magic Tower's master, accepts mana naturally. He thinks that maybe he can learn other types of magic, besides water element magic. Dale concentrates, directing the mana he pulled into his body towards his fingertips, to create something he imagines. The deadliest shard, the weapon that will strangle the Empire, and succeeds in forming it. Sabia notes with astonishment that he succeeded in crystallizing the magical power, forming a near-perfect ice bolt. She explains to herself that usually, the form of the magic collapses when condensed and released. Sabia assumes that because of his focus on the form, the spell might lack destructive power. Dale casts the spell. The ice bolt hits the tree and explodes with immense force. The tree is completely shattered, leaving Sabia utterly shocked. Sabia realizes the ice was sharp and hard enough to pierce a tree, and confirms that this precision is impossible for an 8-year-old child. Dale turns with an innocent smile while Sabia wonders in shock about the truth of this child. Sabia contemplates the scene amazed. She thought that at best he would move the mana, but he released magical power and combined it with the ice element. Although it was a basic spell, he executed it with astonishing skill, using the surrounding cold to strengthen it. Dale asks innocently if he made a mistake. Debia thinks that the complexity of the magic formula he used is very advanced, and an innocent child couldn't create it unconsciously. She realizes he used 3 formulas: rotation, acceleration, compression, collectively known as the golden ratio of military magic. She concludes that him casting such a perfect spell for slaughter, unconsciously, is shocking. Dale calls her again and she answers that it's nothing. Sabia thinks she finally understands why the Duke, the Black Archmage, felt so regretful. In a later scene, Sabia reports to the Duke. He asks her surprised why she says she can't teach Dale. The Duke argues that if the child reached the first circle in minutes, that's all the more reason to teach him. Sabia tells him that the moment Dale completed the first circle, he immediately executed a perfect slaughter spell. The Duke is shocked to hear this. Sabia confirms that it's hard to believe. An 8-year-old child created a spell, containing a perfect military formula, known as the golden ratio. She concludes her report with a shocking conclusion, telling the Duke that the young Master Dale has a talent for killing. The Duke asked, looking contemplative, if Miss Sabia was saying she couldn't teach Dale, especially since she is an elder of the Blue Tower, which advocates against killing. Sabia denies this, confirming that for this very reason, she feels the desire to guide him herself in the right way. The Duke comments that, in that case, there is no reason to refuse. Sabia continues explaining that the young Master Dale seems to already have a magic he wishes to learn, which is the Duke's dark magic, and he looks surprised. Sabia continues, mentioning that she has heard the story of the Black Mage's love, and that she respects his promise to Lady Elena. But she asserts that this promise does not give him the right to decide his child's future, especially with the immense talent the young lord possesses. Meanwhile, Dale was eavesdropping from the top of the stairs, but he comments that he can't understand a word of what they are saying. He looks frustrated and assumes they are definitely talking about him. He thinks to himself, surprised by the power his first spell had, and notes that even Lady Sabia of the tower seemed very surprised. He sighs and decides he needs to be more careful in controlling his power from now on. His thoughts are interrupted by a voice calling young Lord Dale. He gets up from lying on the floor, smiling. It's a man in armor. Dale calls him excitedly Uncle Helmet, and asks him why he is here. More importantly, he asks him where he has been. Helmet replies with a laugh that he was performing his duty of protecting the duchy. He explains that he was sweeping up terrifying monsters, then lifts Dale into his arms. Dale smiles and understands that his uncle was conquering a dungeon. Dale thinks explaining that, in this world, the appearance of dungeons, or a flood of monsters, is a big event for any province, and this has been the case since the era of the Demon King. The damage caused by monster attacks on settlements is not minor. Therefore, the primary duty of the province's knights is to conquer the dungeons that have not yet been subjugated in the former Demon King's lands, or to eliminate the monsters that overflow due to a dungeon breach. Dale explains that the situation in the Duchy of Saxon is several times worse, and the reason is him, meaning Hans Jung, in his previous life. Dale explains that after he defeated the Demon King, in his previous life, the Duke of Saxon was ordered to subjugate the monsters in the Demon King's lands, which were granted to him as a thief, and turn them into Imperial lands. He describes this in professional terms as passing the dirty work to others. Back in the present, Dale asks Uncle Helmet not to get hurt. The latter is touched to hear the young lord's concern for him. At that moment, the Duke arrives. Dale calls out to his father. Helmet greets the Duke, who thanks him with a smile for his hard work on the campaign. Duchess Elena arrives, wondering why everyone is gathered. Dale wonders what his mother wants. Elena calls out to Dale excitedly, telling him she heard he reached the first circle, describing it as amazing as she fusses over him. The Duke also smiles and congratulates Dale, telling him that if there is anything he wants, he should tell his father immediately. Dale hesitates, wondering if asking to learn necromancy would seem too cunning. He tries to think of a normal wish for a child his age. Then Dale suddenly announces that he wants a little sister. The Duke and Duchess are shocked and blush. The Duke replies with hesitation and embarrassment that he will try. Dale cheers them on. Captain Helmet lies outside the tower, laughing, while one of the knights asks him to stop laughing, in reaction to Dale's strange request. Meanwhile, Dale lies in his bed, thinking how exhausting it is to pretend to be innocent and pure at his true mental age. He feels tired and wonders if it's because of using magic. Suddenly, intense pain overcomes him. Dale sees Brandenburg in a nightmare from his past. As Hansong greeting him and saying, "It's been a long time," Brandenburg mocks him, calling him fickle, and how he has become soft so easily. He continues to mock him, asking if he is happy now with his new life, good parents, and a home, implying that since his back is warm and his stomach is full, he no longer cares about revenge. Then his face twists into a sinister smile, warning Hansong that the Empire will find him, and he assures him that they will search for him relentlessly, until they eliminate him, and erase all trace of him from this world. Dale suddenly wakes up, panting to find mana exploding violently around him. He clutches his chest in pain, feeling like his heart is about to explode. Dale realizes this is the mana overflow he had only heard about, and curses the damned Imperials. He thinks that they won't leave him alone. Even in the end, he had gone out to get some cold air, hoping to feel better, but the overflow gets worse. Teacher Sabia suddenly appears, noting that he seems to be in pain, which surprises Dale. Sabia diagnoses his condition as mana overflow, which is expected for a talented child like him, but she senses a dangerous feeling emanating from him. Sabia places her hand on Dale to calm the mana, thinking that if resentment fills this child's magic in the future, it will be too late. She succeeds in calming the exploding mana. Dale notices the mana overflow has disappeared. Sebia calls his name and he responds. Sebia explains to him that the essence of magic is a mirror of the heart, which is why the properties of the same spell differ depending on the caster. She tells him that his magic carries an innate talent for taking life, a very dangerous talent, and as she says this, she hands him a book, and for this very reason, Sebia feels it is fortunate that she is the one who can teach him. Dale is shocked when he sees the book, realizing it's a necromancy spell book. Sebia smiles, saying she also feels that fate is what brought her to him, and wishes him a happy birthday. Dale is deeply moved and hugs his teacher, who is surprised, and then pats his head, teasing him that he is still a spoiled child at this age. A few days later, Dale and Sabia go to the plains outside the North Gate. Dale asks about the rabbit. Sabia confirms the rabbit's presence, and asks him to remember the times he went hunting with his father. Dale gets ready. Dale focuses on the rabbit and unleashes a deadly ice spell on it. Sabia watches him, noting that even though he just took a life, there is no tremble in his fingers. She calls his name, thinking that even with the same magic, each caster's form remains endlessly unique. And teacher Sabia continues her lesson. Addressing what happened with the rabbit, she asks Dale if he knows why his fingers didn't tremble when he took a life. He replies that he's not sure, so she explains that magic in its essence is like a mirror reflecting the mind. It materializes what is in the caster's heart through mana particles, which is why magic always reveals the user's inner thoughts. Dale listens in silence. Sebia continues, explaining that even spell names like Firewall are just a means to fix the imagination with a clear mental image, and that magic in different towers is no different from this principle. The red tower values order through power, while the blue tower values order through harmony. She notes that each tower's philosophy is reflected in the form of its magic. She adds that there are other towers besides red and blue, such as black, white, and green, each with its own philosophy. Then she suddenly stops, telling Dale that this lesson is still too early for him, leaving him confused. Sebia then moves on to teaching him the first basics of necromancy, turning a corpse into a zombie, using the corpse of the rabbit he killed earlier. She explains that this magic relies on raising corpses, using mana for the caster to control. Dale applies the lesson, attaching magical threads to the corpse's head, spine, and knees. Dale succeeds in controlling the flow of magical energy, and his teacher praises him. She then asks him to try the next spell, and Dale agrees, as the zombie rabbit with a purple aura stands before him. Dale focuses his energy to cast the frozen armor spell. He succeeds in encasing the zombie rabbit in an icy armor. Sabia notes that the shape of the armor he created is very decent. She smiles and tells him it's time to test its defensive capability, and prepares to launch an ice spell of her own. Sabia launches a powerful ice bolt towards the armored rabbit. The armor successfully blocks the attack before shattering, and Dale rejoices at his success in blocking his teacher's attack. Sabia praises him again, and notices that he looks like he wants to say something, so she asks him if he has a request. Dale replies very enthusiastically in the affirmative. Dale asks his teacher to help him master water element magic as well, alongside necromancy. Sabia smiles, then surprises him with a firm refusal. Dale is shocked to hear her answer. She explains to him that what he did today was just the basics of water magic. She explains that water magic, like other types of magic, requires deeper understanding and advanced insight, as one delves into it, which makes it increasingly difficult. She adds that for a normal beginner, learning even one spell is difficult. As for the idea of becoming a dual magician and using two types of magic at once, it's very difficult at his age, and seems like excessive ambition to her. Dale is shocked to hear the word ambition, and thinks to himself how she still sees him as insufficient. After all the abilities he has shown her, he feels disappointed, remembering she promised him they would find the way together. While he is in this state, Sabia ends the lesson for the day. That night Dale is in the study, determined to prove he can handle it himself. He buries himself in self-study, surrounded by a glow of dark magic energy, determined to learn magic even without direct guidance. Later the next morning, his teacher Sabia calls out to him, noting that he looks exhausted. Sabia asks him how he is, and if he lost some sleep, and Dale replies that he stayed up a little late preparing something. Sabia advises him not to overwork himself, and Dale agrees. Later on, the snowy plains. Dale begins to demonstrate what he prepared, merging a dark magic circle with ice magic, applying an upgraded spike-covered frozen armor to the zombie rabbit. Sabia watches him and comments that he has completely mastered it. Suddenly, the ice armor shatters and explodes into sharp shards, stunning Sabia, who wonders if this is a frost explosion, but it doesn't end there. As the zombie rabbit begins to gather dark energy, the rabbit unleashes a corpse explosion. The flying ice shards, combined with the dark explosion in a combined attack, heading towards Sabia. Sabia finds herself in a shower of ice shards and dark energy. After the attack subsides, Dale stands before his teacher, who protected herself with a magic shield, and explains that he combined the corpse explosion with the frost explosion, meaning he combined water magic and dark magic. With a confident smile holding a ball of ice magic in one hand and a ball of dark magic in the other, he asks if this is enough to be a dual magician. Debbie stands stunned in silence amidst the destruction, and thinks that this is an attack style she has never seen before. She analyzes the attack, realizing that the frost explosion from the frozen armor merged with the corpse explosion to inflict wider area damage. She notes that the sharp, ice shards and rabbit bones have embedded themselves everywhere, like blades. She concludes that this technique seems designed only for killing, like something created by someone who spent their entire life on battlefields. Debbie wonders with concern about the inner world of this child. Dale notices her silence but suddenly turns, calling out, "Sir Helmet the Knight." Helmet approaches on his horse, waving and greeting the young lord and Miss Debbia. Dale asks him if he just returned from clearing another dungeon. Helmet replies that this time, they were subjugating a small group of monsters. He adds that the Black Cavalry had some difficulty. The Black Cavalry are known as the Invincible Knights of Duke Saxon, dominating the battlefield with aura-coated lances, and their leader is the Knight Commander, Sir Helmet. It is also revealed that he is one of the 7 swords of the Continent. Dale asks Helmet if he still remembers his promise to teach him swordsmanship, later asserting that there is no better person to learn from. Helmet laughs and welcomes Dale anytime. Dale promises he will see him soon. Helmet confirms this, and asks the young lord to go back inside as it's cold, wishing him a safe return. After the lesson ends, Teacher Sabia suggests returning to the tower, and Dale agrees. That night, the Duchess, Elena and the Duke summon Miss Sabia to inquire about something. Sabia informs them directly that the young lord, Dale, has mastered the first circle for both necromancy and water magic. Duke looks displeased, and reminds her that they definitely asked her to teach him only water magic, which Sabia confirms. Sabia defends herself, saying that, as a teacher, she wanted to teach the child what he wanted to learn, and Dale's desire was not limited to water magic. Duchess Elena intervenes, deciding that since this is Dale's wish, she asks Sabia to continue teaching him water magic. Sabia agrees, and the Duke and Duchess express their gratitude to her. Before she leaves, Sabia offers her sincere apologies to Duchess Elena for causing her to break her vow to the Duke about not teaching Dale necromancy. After Sabia leaves, the Duchess sighs, commenting that their son is no ordinary child. He's a dual magician at the age of 8. She admits that it's scary sometimes, but this is what makes him their son. The Duke calls her name, the Duke, surprises her by announcing that he wants to teach Dale necromancy. Himself, he explains that he has multiple motives. As a lord, he wants to give his heir the power to bear his duties. As a magician, he wants to take on this talented disciple. And as a father, he wishes to pass on his legacy to his son. The Duke apologizes profusely to his wife for breaking his promise to her. Elena replies that she understands. The public perception of necromancy is still bad, and everyone whispers that it's the magic of death. She explains that this is why she tried to prevent it at first, but now she asks him for the opposite, to raise Dale to become a necromancer, strong enough to crush those people easily. The Duke, moved, asks her if she truly understands, and she hugs him, confirming. He replies that he understands. He vows that he will bet everything he has to make their son the absolute best. Later, the Duke begins his first lesson with Dale, expressing his great disappointment in him. The Duke scolds his son, asking if he has been moving the dead all this time, without even understanding what he is moving. Dale thinks to himself angrily that his teacher, Sabia, only taught him the basics, so what did he expect him to do? Dale explains that as soon as he showed his father the basics, he learned. His father immediately took him to the Black Duke's magic workshop, located in the castle's basement. The Duke tells Dale sternly that as long as he is training with him, he must completely forget about using such primitive magic. The Duke announces that the first lesson will begin with memorizing the complete, skeletal and muscular structure of every living creature. Dale is surrounded by massive piles of books, and weakly answers his father with an okay. Dale realizes these books are highly specialized texts that only doctors would have encountered in his old world. After spending days memorizing every word, his father finally tells him he has finished the basics. Dale is happy that he will finally learn practical magic. The Duke confirms that the real lesson will begin now. They stand before a goblin corpse, and Dale wonders in surprise. The Duke smiles, noticing his son's confusion. The Duke explains that an unskilled magician can only move the corpse of a swordmaster as a mere zombie, while a skilled magician can create a death knight from the corpse of an ordinary foot soldier. The Duke points to the goblin corpse before him, saying that right now they have one undead soldier here. Then he asks Dale challengingly, "How will you move it?" Dale begins his attempt to move the goblin corpse, but he realizes it's much harder than the rabbit. The goblin is a bipedal creature with many bones, and requires much more complex monothread connections. He struggles greatly to control the corpse, which moves very slowly and stiffly. He feels like he's controlling a complicated puppet. Dale wonders if he made a mistake by using rigor mortis magic to increase the corpse's defense, as the joints and muscles have become too stiff to move, and he stands helpless, not knowing what to do. The Duke intervenes, explaining to Dale that the idea of accelerating rigor mortis to strengthen the corpse was good, but its drawback is restricting movement too much. The Duke asks his son to watch, then takes control of the corpse himself with a dark magic aura. Dale is shocked as he watches his father easily animate the corpse. The Duke explains that the rib cage, by its nature, is an organ whose function is to protect the internal viscera. He asks, since the dead don't need to protect their insides, why do we keep it as it is? The Duke immediately changes the corpse's form, turning the rib cage into sharp blades and protruding claws. The Duke explains to his son that he must understand the structure of the creature before him, then change its form to suit his purpose. He concludes that this is the foundation of dark magic. Dale calls out to his father in admiration. Dale asks his father about the philosophy that the Black Tower follows. The Duke answers with one word: truth. The Duke explains that truth is always found within death, and for this reason, they must understand the weight of life in order to reach that truth. As the Duke places his hand on Dale's shoulder, a painful memory from his past life, as Han Song returns to him, where a man was kneeling before him amidst the flames, begging the great hero to spare his life. Han Song ignores the pleas, and raises his blood-stained sword to kill him. This memory sends a shiver down Dale's spine, and the Duke notices his pale face, and asks if he is okay. Dale quickly shakes his head and assures his father that he is fine. The narration explains that as Dale's magical skills grew day by day, news of Duke Saxon, teaching him black magic, spread throughout the empire. The Duke's violation of his vow, his marriage promise, caused a great shock in noble circles, and the one responsible for this, Dale, became the center of intense scrutiny and attention from many, including the Empire's nobles. The Empire's nobles who began to watch him relentlessly. A few weeks later in the Duchess training ground, Dale is shown training seriously in swordsmanship with a wooden sword. Against Uncle Helmet, they exchange fierce blows, and Dale manages to knock the sword out of Helmet's hand. Amidst Helmet's shock, his sword falls to the ground. Helmet laughs, praising the young lord and calling his move impressive. Dale replies that, "It's impossible for a knight like him to drop his sword so easily." Dale accuses Helmet of going easy on him. Helmet strongly denies this, insisting he was using practical swordsmanship, and that any normal person would have died from a single blow. Helmet praises Dale's exceptional skill with the sword, commenting that, "It's a pity he is a magician." He adds that, since magicians are always protected by guards and defensive magic, there is no real need for Dale to train this hard, and asks him why he is doing it. Helmet notices Dale's bandaged hand, and advises him not to push himself to the point of injury. Dale confirms that he has a reason. Of course, Dale explains with a smile, that it would be pathetic if the son of Duke Saxon relied only on guards and defensive magic, and he adds that having the chance to train personally, under one of the 7 swords of the continent, is something he cannot miss. Helmet laughs, loudly impressed by Dale's response, and says he has no greater wish than to have a son like him. Dale smiles, saying the day he receives high praise from Helmet has finally come. At that moment, Duchess Elena arrives, commenting on their high spirits. Dale quickly greets her. Dale asks her why she came to this cold place, and she replies that she came to see how hard her son is working. She adds that she also has news to share with him, and reminds him of the birthday present he asked for. Dale looks confused, trying to remember the gift he asked for. A flashback shows him asking his parents for a little sister. Dale is shocked to hear this. His mother smiles and tells him he will have to take good care of his little sister. Dale responds with overwhelming enthusiasm that he certainly will. 10 months later, Dale is shown looking over his newborn sister. His mother asks him if she amazes him, and he replies, "Yes," astonished by how small she is. Dale touches the baby's cheek, commenting that he still can't believe she is his sister, and describes her as amazing. His mother asks him if he wants to hold her, and Dale hesitates nervously. His mother encourages him not to back down, and the Duke assures him that holding her isn't difficult, and that he found it easy when he tried. Dale holds his baby sister, and his mother asks him what he thinks, saying she looks just like him. Duchess Elena notes with surprise that the baby cried a lot when her father held her, but she hasn't made a sound in Dale's arms. As the baby smiles peacefully, the Duke asks his son Dale how he feels holding his baby sister in his arms. Dale answers his father that although she is as light as a feather, he feels a great weight. The Duke explains to him that this is the weight of life, and advises him to never forget this feeling. The Duchess reminds her son, Dale, that it's time for his lesson, and that Miss Sabia is waiting for him. The scene shifts to the snowy plains, where teacher Sabia tells Dale that today, they will conduct a practical training duel. Dale asks hesitantly if he can really attack her, and Sabia encourages him not to hesitate and to use everything he has. Dale agrees and begins preparing a magic circle. Sabia prepares herself as well, thinking that she will see how much improvement he has made. Dale begins the attack by launching a large ice bolt towards his teacher. Sabia receives the attack, easily catches the ice bolt in her hand, and shatters it, commenting that it's too slow for an opening move. She taunts him as she holds a remaining ice shard, while Dale stands shocked by her reaction. Sabia surprises Dale by throwing the shard at him forcefully, yelling at him to raise his defensive barrier. The ice projectile hits the ground, causing an explosion at Dale's location. Dale gets up from the ground, thinking that if he hadn't succeeded in blocking the attack, he would have been seriously injured. Sabia watches him thinking with admiration how he managed to cast the ice shield spell in that brief moment, to protect himself. Sabia describes his performance as excellent, and asks him to try again. Dale responds by focusing on a new magic formula. Ice Wall. Dale places his hands on the ground and executes the spell, ordering the ice wall to rise. Sabia is surprised by this move, wondering why he is using a defensive spell, like Ice Wall, in the middle of a duel. Sabia realizes that Dale used a formula to strengthen the molecular bonds of the ice, significantly increasing its density to become as hard as steel. She continues to wonder about the reason for this defensive move, guessing that perhaps he needs a moment to catch his breath after her last attack, but behind the wall. Dale was preparing a new spell, Ice Explosion, the fragmentation formula. Then he orders the wall to explode. The massive ice wall explodes, and Sabia realizes in shock that the explosion is designed to launch ice shards in every direction, and she finds herself in the line of fire. Dale celebrates the success of his attack, thinking about the spell he just unleashed. It was a composite spell, an extremely hard ice barrier, which he compressed again and then applied explosive magic to. He explains in his thoughts that, Since he strengthened the ice's molecular bonds first, and then compressed it, he effectively turned it into a grenade. Dale looks confidently towards the rising smoke, believing that this time, it will be difficult for his teacher to dodge the attack. Dale sees his teacher's figure in the smoke, and asks with concern, then shouts her name worriedly. When he sees her body freeze completely, and then shatter, but the real Sabia suddenly appears, smiling behind the ice statue that resembles her, asking him if he called her. Dale is shocked, realizing what he saw shatter was just an illusion. Sabia praises his excellent skill, as a small cut appears on her cheek from the attack. She admits that she never imagined a magician, with only the first circle, could injure an elder of the towers. Dale quickly apologizes, insisting he didn't mean to hurt her. Sabia reassures him that she knows, adding that she is actually grateful for the wound he gave her today, which leaves him very confused. Teacher Sabia explains that she is grateful for the wound, and asks Dale if this doesn't mean he trusts her enough to show his full strength. Sabia kneels before him, asserting that as a teacher, she couldn't be happier. Dale asks her if she's telling the truth, and she replies, of course, calling him her excellent student. Tobias pats Dale's head, expressing her amazement at his creation of such a magic formula. Dale replies that the credit all goes to her teachings. Dale falls silent, noticing his teacher has become lost in thought. Later, the Duke asks Miss Sabia about the cut on her cheek. She replies that it's a wound she received due to her inexperience during a lesson with the young lord, praising the indescribable sharpness of the spell. The Duke expresses that he feels constantly indebted to her, but Sevia insists that teaching a talented student is a pleasure for her. The Duke takes the opportunity to brazenly ask her for another favor. She tells him to speak freely. The Duke explains that they have received reports that a horde of orcs has crossed the mountain range and entered their lands. Although it's a minor incursion that a small knight unit could handle, he has decided to have Dale participate in this battle. She immediately objects, saying the young lord is not ready yet. The Duke clarifies that he is not asking him to excel on the battlefield, but it is the duty of the Saxon family to be responsible for the territory's safety. He asserts that as the eldest son, he is no exception, and must understand this duty. As Sabia wonders worriedly what to do, the Duke informs her that he will bestow his personal artifact on Dale, and he asks her to guide him so he can control that power. It is explained that the artifact holds immense power and thoughts, and can be used by sacrificing life or mana. The greater the power, the more difficult and dangerous it becomes, and in extreme cases it can lead to death. The Duke explains that the Saxon family has handled and controlled these powers for generations. The scene shifts to the front of the castle's artifact armory. The Duke asks Dale, as the eldest son, if he shouldn't prepare for the upcoming battle. Dale is shocked to hear the word battle, but immediately becomes excited, as he realizes he will finally go into battle. The Duke confirms that he will join the subjugation force. To defeat the orc horde, the Duke opens the armory door, telling him that before that, he must learn to control the dark power of the Saxon family. Dale is impressed by the armory filled with artifacts. His father explains that these are the artifacts from the Demon Lord's domain, that they manage. He adds that they are heirlooms, obtained while reclaiming the Demon Lord's domain, since the time of their ancestors, and should not be compared to ordinary tools. Dale feels the power of the magic emanating from them. The Duke confirms that every single one is dangerous, and warns him not to touch them carelessly, before he learns to control them. But as the Duke was speaking, he turns to find that Dale has disappeared, and wonders where he went. Dale had already gone inside, thinking he needs an artifact that suits him. Suddenly, he hears a voice from one of the artifacts calling to him, saying it senses hatred in him, and that he wants revenge. Other artifacts join in, urging him to choose them to destroy their enemies together, while another calls him a coward, and demands he wear it to tear them apart. He realizes that these dark, powered artifacts are resonating with the grudge he carries, but he rejects them all in his mind, believing none of them satisfy him, and that he needs something much stronger. He stops suddenly, having noticed a cloak beside him, and wonders how long it has been there. Dale recognizes the cloak that appeared beside him, realizing it's the Cloak of Shadow. He immediately remembers it was a high-level artifact, used by Duke Berta, the commander of the Demon King's army, whom he faced in his previous life. The cloak's ability was to manifest shadows, which made fighting against it extremely difficult. He gets excited and decides to wear it immediately, but his father shouts his name, warning him at the last moment. He ignores the warning, and as soon as he wears it, his consciousness is transported to a dark space, where he hears a voice screaming inside him repeatedly, "I'm hungry," from the outside. The Duke watches the scene, commenting that it has begun. He thinks that this shadow is not ordinary. In the past, users of the cloak would summon storms of shadows, and move them like living beings. And to use this shadow creature, The user must completely subjugate it. Dale confronts the manifested shadow creature within his consciousness, realizing that subjugating it will not be easy. Outside, the Duke and teacher, Sabia, watch anxiously at the massive ball of shadow enveloping Dale. Sabia expresses her concern that a long time has passed, and the Duke warns her that if the delay continues, he will lose his mind and be swallowed by the shadow creature. Sabia is distressed to hear this, and the Duke decides they have no choice but to intervene and pull him out by force. But before they can intervene, the shadows suddenly dissipate, and Dale appears wearing the new cloak. His father calls out to him, and he replies calmly. Sabia rushes to check on him, expressing her deep concern, but Dale reassures her that he is fine, and all he felt was just a simple prickle. The Duke wonders in shock how he can be completely fine. The Duke continues to wonder in amazement how a small child's body can handle such a powerful artifact. Dale interrupts them with a smile, asking his father if he can try more of these artifacts. The Duke and Sabia are extremely shocked by his request. The Duke hesitantly agrees, and Dale thanks him enthusiastically. His exploration of the artifacts in the armory continues for a full day. A few days later, in the Duchy's training ground, Sir Helmet notices the cloak Dale is wearing and recognizes it, immediately asking, "Isn't that the Cloak of Shadow?" Dale confirms it. Helmet comments that this artifact is known for being difficult to handle, and asks him how he is. Dale replies that it doesn't bother him except for a slight prickle. Helmet finds this very strange. Dale smiles and makes up a story, saying the cloak was probably lonely, and that it latched onto him as soon as it saw him, perhaps because it wanted to be his friend. Helmet laughs at the idea, commenting on the young lord's kind heart for seeing something so dangerous as a lonely creature. Dale thanks Sir Helmet for his words. As the shadow creature appears at his feet, being forcefully suppressed under his foot, he tells him he has a request, and Helmet replies that he is ready to do anything. The young lord asks. Dale requests a real duel as combat training. Helmet agrees enthusiastically, promising he will do his best not to disappoint the young lord. As they prepare for the duel, Dale thinks that choosing one of the 7 swords of the continent as a training partner might be excessive, as his mere presence is overwhelming. Helmet notices his tension, and reassures him that he will only use basic swordsmanship, without aura. Dale thinks that Helmet is going easy on him, and that a true knight must fight with all his heart. He prepares to attack, and shadows emerge from his cloak, as he explains in his thoughts that the true purpose of this fight is to train in mastering the Cloak of Shadow, under the guise of combat practice. He adds that the true value of this artifact will be determined by his ability to turn the shadows into powerful weapons. He sees this training as necessary, and launches a Shadowblade barrage attack towards Helmet. Helmet receives the attack, and Dale is shocked when he realizes Helmet shattered the blades with his pure, physical strength, without even using aura. He is astonished by this terrifying power. Helmet laughs, calling the young lord's performance excellent, and then announces that it's his turn to attack. Dale quickly retreats backward, preparing to defend, but Helmet is surprised when sharp shadow thorns erupt from the ground to block his path. Helmet comments with admiration on the cloak's ability to execute ambushes. Like this, Helmet swings his sword down on Dale's shadow defenses. Dale groans from the force of the blow. Dale blocks Helmet's successive attacks, being pushed back by the force of Helmet's strikes. Helmet stands amazed, wondering how he managed to block his blow, noting that his strikes were strong enough to shatter ordinary swords. Where Helmet realizes that a high-level artifact is truly something different. Helmet shouts excitedly, asking Dale to continue for 10 more rounds, and they continue to clash. That day after the training ended, the ordinary knights who were watching commented that they never lasted more than 2 rounds against Commander Helmet, and that they felt an indescribable wall between themselves and Dale. A few days later, on the day of departure, Duchess Elena was still worried, telling Dale she couldn't send him to such a dangerous place. He tries to reassure her, reminding her that his father and Sir Helmet will be with him. His mother continues to express her worry about him potentially getting hurt. He addresses his mother seriously, asserting that he must become stronger, so he can bear the responsibility of the Duke's family. One day he looks at his sleeping baby sister Liz, and says he needs to gain more experience now, so the time will come when he can protect her, his father and his mother. He pleads with his mother to let him become strong enough to protect her. Elena is moved by his words and agrees, bidding him farewell and asking him to take care of himself. He promises her he will return soon. That dawn at the temporary base, Sir Helmet informs the Duke that the troops are ready to depart. The Duke asks Dale to give the order to march instead of him. Dale is surprised, and his father explains that the Black Cavalry, their family's pride, will be the force Dale leads one day. The Duke asserts that these men are already his knights. Dale realizes they are not his father's knights, but his and that this is his first battle as Dale. Convinced that this time will be different, he announces that the time for departure has come. He raises his fist and gives his order to the troops, calling them the proud blades of House Saxon. The knights chant their response, declaring they follow the young lord's order. Orders are given for the units to take their positions. It is explained that the force of 250 knights will join the elite guard unit, stationed in the White Mountains, known as the Winter Guards. The battle plan is explained. The ORC horde to be subjugated, numbers around 1,000. The orcs have crossed the upper stream of the Saxon River, escaping the cold and hunger, and will soon head towards the lower stream. Therefore, the plan is for the Duke's forces to cross the lower stream first, to launch a surprise attack. Since the only way for 250 men to cross a deep river quickly is with magical assistance, Teacher Sabia steps forward and asks everyone to move away, announcing she will create a bridge of ice. Dale thanks her, appreciating her coming to help in a battle. Despite her creed of peace and non-violence, Sabia creates a massive ice bridge over the river, and tells the troops they can cross now. The Duke thanks her, and Sabia wishes him victory. Dale bids farewell to his teacher. Setting off on his horse, she watches him ride away, smiling, and thinks to herself how she has a student who makes his teacher worry about him so much. A short time later, at the ORC's temporary base, the Winter Guard archer unit lies in ambush and launches a volley of flaming arrows at the camp. The exploding arrows rain down on the orcs, causing chaos and destruction. An orc screams in anger amidst the flames. Sir Helmut orders the 1st, 2nd and 3rd Knight battalions to attack in a wedge formation. Helmut asks Dale for his opinion. As he rides beside him, Dale analyzes the scene, noting the horses are moving at 40 kilometers per hour. He adds that the weight of the knight and horse gives them tremendous acceleration. He concludes his analysis that the couched lance tactic, 3 to 4 meters long, supported by the knight's aura, makes it impossible for even orcs to stop them. The knights easily break through the orc ranks, and Dale comments that the battle is one-sided. The Duke agrees, confirming that this is the power of the duchy's knights. Helmut warns the young lord not to relax, asserting that this is just the beginning. The fierce battle continues between the knights and the orcs. Helmut explains that the ambush succeeded, but it wasn't enough to annihilate them. The plan now is to withdraw, regroup, and then eliminate them with successive attacks. The signal for retreat is given, and the troops begin to fall back. As the knights retreat, the orcs stand confused. 2 orcs roar, and one throws a spear at a lagging knight. The knight is hit in the arm, and the spear pierces his horse's neck, causing the knight to fall to the ground. Dale stops and looks towards the knight. Helmut comments coldly on their bad luck in retreating. The Duke considered the knight's fate sealed, noting that his army suffered one loss, while Dale wondered to himself if that meant the knight was already dead. The Duke adds that a proud sword of House Saxon has been exposed to the enemy. Dale turns sharply, wondering why they are just standing and watching. He sees an orc running to finish off the wounded knight, and realizes that if he goes down the slope on horseback, he'll be too late. He closes his eyes and concentrates, deciding he needs to penetrate the orc's thick hide. From this distance, he thinks that orc hide is tougher than other monsters, so the current magic formula needs modification. He continues to concentrate, realizing he must penetrate the orc's thick hide. From his distance he decides to modify the current ice bolt formula, thinking of adding a bullet formula to it, capable of precise anti-personnel sniping. He also decides to add a sniper rifle formula, to support the bullet formula, and increase its efficiency. He extends his hand and casts the new spell, an ice bolt modified with sniper rifle properties. The magical ice projectile fires, instantly, penetrating the head of the orc that was attacking the wounded knight. The orc falls dead, and Helmut, from his position, notes that the accuracy was high despite the long distance. Dale immediately rides his horse down the hill. Sir Helmut calls out to him in surprise, wondering where he is going. Duke Jackson stops him, ordering him to leave him be, which surprises Helmut. The Duke smiles, thinking that Dale's creation of a unique formula at such a young age, and it possessing such lethal power, means that Dale's inner world may already be complete. Dale reaches the wounded knight, and notices that the other orcs have regrouped. He realizes he has 2 problems. The first is the knight in front of him, who is panicked and is unable to get up. The second problem is that his unique formula is too long, making it ineffective in direct combat. He realizes he needs to shorten the formula, just like mathematical formulas are shortened. He thinks of a short name like Ice 98 Magnum. He finds this name is still too long, and decides that Ice Bullet will do. At that moment, another orc rushes towards the panicked knight. Dale casts his new spell Ice Bullet. The Ice Bullet penetrates the orc's head. The orc falls right behind the knight, who looks at Dale in terror, wondering why the young lord is here for him. Dale stands before the collapsed knight and tells him not to worry. He smiles and tells him that House Saxon never abandons a sword. That shows loyalty. The knight is deeply moved. The rest of the orcs roar and approach, and Dale prepares to unleash his magic. He uses his cloak of shadow, unleashing shadow blades to attack the orcs. He smiles and commands his shadows to devour them. An orc looks up in terror. The shadows descend on the orcs. Tearing them apart, the shadows devour and grind the orcs, leaving behind their skeletons. He turns to the last remaining orc and asks with a smile why he hasn't run away yet. Then he casts the ice bullet spell. After finishing off the last orc, he comments that things are good now. The knight calls out to him, admitting his legs won't move from fear. Sir Helmet arrives with the rest of the knights, finding him carrying the wounded knight. Dale tells him he finally arrived and that he'll leave the rest to him. Helmet orders all knight battalions to attack simultaneously. Shouting for House Saxon, the knights charge, adding a new cheer to their battle for the young Lord Dale. A short time later at the Saxon base, the Duke congratulates his son Dale, telling him, the orc subjugation operation has been successfully completed. After the battle ends, the Duke summons his son, Dale, explaining that he has a question regarding the recent subjugation. The Duke sternly asks his son for the real reason behind his foolish charge alone into the enemy lines. Dale gulps, wondering to himself why he is being reprimanded. The Duke insists on knowing the reason. Dale reminds his father of what he told him earlier, that the Knights of House Saxon are the force he will one day lead. Based on that, he explains that he simply carried out a mission befitting that role. The Duke rejects this logic, calling it weak. Dale is shocked, thinking that his father is known for caring about his knights, wondering why he is acting this way now. Dale decides to talk back, asking his father why he, the Duke, just stood by and watched one of the duchy's knights die. The Duke explains that the northern front of House Saxon, bordering the Demon King's lands, endures countless monster attacks, and the knights who fight there don't expect anyone to come and save them. Dale objects, saying that he, nonetheless, wanted to save a knight who showed loyalty to his father. The Duke responds with a profound question, asking if Dale meant just as you did one day. The Duke continues his lesson, explaining that knights must think and act for themselves to survive on the battlefield, and by intervening, Dale made them believe that someone else will always come to save them. The Duke wonders, how many knights can survive with this dependent mentality? The Duke clarifies his own duty. He only intervenes when the knights face a threat beyond their ability to handle. This is the noble duty that the Saxons must bear. Dale finds himself unable to respond, realizing he had forgotten a principle that he himself, as Han Song, used to live by in the past. Despite this, and as Dale appears determined in his stance, the Duke smiles and places his hand on his son's shoulder. He tells him that the way he turned his conviction into action left a strong impression on him, and advises him to never forget that. He then tells him to return to the castle. The story of the Duke's young son rushing into a horde of orcs to save a single knight spreads, becoming fodder for gossip in the Empire. The rumors exaggerate, with some claiming the young master single-handedly wiped out 1,000 orcs. The story, described as 9/10 truth and 1/10 exaggeration, spreads like wildfire throughout the Empire. And although Dale himself found it embarrassing, this event brought a new wind of change within the duchy. A few days later, upon Dale's arrival at the duchy's knight training ground, all the knights welcome him. Kneeling in respect, he feels embarrassed and asks them not to do that. But Sir Helmet tells him to stand proudly. Helmet addresses the knights, declaring that they must become stronger for the future of their young master. The knights cheer, affirming their obedience. Dale comments on how enthusiastic they are. A maid named Eve approaches him. Eve informs him that it's time for the guests from House Earlhart to arrive. He thanks her and sets off to greet them. He thinks about how they will be receiving special guests. It is revealed that the guests are from the warrior House Earlhart, who were a great noble family in the Kingdom of Teutonia, led by the sword god Bartel. The introduction to the warrior house Earlhart continues, explaining that, when the Empire waged its war of unification, the Kingdom of Teutonia fell, and with the death of the sword god Bartel, the family collapsed. Back at the castle, Dale notices that Sir Helmet seems lost in thought. He approaches him, guessing he must be thinking about the sword god, the man who led Helmet himself down the path of knighthood. Helmet admits it leaves a bitter taste in his mouth. The Duke notices that Dale arrived on time and must have been training, which Dale confirms at that moment. A servant announces the guests' arrival, and the Duke orders that they be shown the utmost respect. Two ladies enter, Vanessa Earlhart and her young daughter Charlotte. Bowing, the Duke commends their arrival without any escorts. Vanessa Earlhart introduces herself, humbly greeting the Duke of Saxon, The Duke welcomes them. Vanessa then introduces her daughter, Charlotte Earlhart, but Charlotte mutters angrily. Mother Dale wonders about her strange reaction. Suddenly Charlotte shouts at her mother, asking why she is bowing to people like them. Vanessa panics and shouts her daughter's name. As Vanessa tries to silence her daughter, the Duke calmly intervenes, appreciating that they must have had a long and tiring journey. The Duke asks Dale to accompany Lady Charlotte and show her around the castle, and he agrees. He politely extends his hand to show Charlotte the way, but she violently slaps his hand away and yells at him not to touch her. Dale is shocked while the Duke and Duchess, holding her baby, look on in surprise. Charlotte scoffs, calling them rude Imperial nobles. Vanessa screams at her daughter and orders her to apologize to the young lord immediately. Charlotte ignores her and angrily leaves the room, while Dale calls after her, asking her to wait after Charlotte slams the door. Vanessa apologizes profusely for her daughter's rudeness, explaining she isn't usually like this, but is reacting strongly because of something that happened recently. Duchess Elena asks her what happened. Vanessa explains that not long ago, Count Brandenburgg, a holy knight, was appointed as an inspector of their lands. She continues that Count Brandenburgg is as famous for being a holy swordmaster as he is for his title, the Pig King. He is obsessed with obtaining an heir with superior talent, coveting any skilled swordsman or swordswoman, and forcing himself on them. She adds that he does this even if the girl has not yet come of age. She reveals they barely managed to escape before he could lay his hands on her daughter, but it was impossible to erase those memories. She admits she would do anything to protect her daughter, but as a fallen noble, she lacks the power. She pleads with the Duke to accept her daughter, Charlotte, as a maid in House Saxon, so that man Brandenburgg can never touch her again. Meanwhile, Dale finds Charlotte in the training ground and wonders why she came here. Guessing that the blood of knights runs in her veins, he asks her if she knows where she is going, and she says no. She asks him if his hand, which she slapped, is okay. He replies that it's fine, and tells her not to worry. Charlotte is relieved. Dale notices she was crying earlier, concluding that she is still thinking about what happened, and that despite her harsh exterior, she is still just a child. Suddenly Charlotte turns and draws her sword, declaring that in that case, he must duel her. She orders Dale of Saxon to draw his sword. Dale is surprised, thinking to himself that this girl, Charlotte, does whatever she wants. Charlotte demands he duel her. Dale asks why, and she replies that she has heard many rumors. Charlotte explains she heard he is an amazing man, who single-handedly defeated 1,000 orcs and saved a fallen knight. Dale thinks to himself that the story isn't quite like that, and feels embarrassed by the exaggeration. She continues that by defeating him, who is said to be unparalleled in the Empire, she will show the whole world that she is stronger, and she will prove that she can protect her family from that man. Dale wonders to himself who she means. Charlotte states his name, the Swordmaster Count Brandenburgg. Dale is shocked to hear the name. He seethes internally, remembering he is the other bastard from the Empire, who stabbed him in the back. He is surprised to hear his name in this situation. He thinks that since their goal is the same, she might be a good ally, but decides he first needs to teach her a lesson in reality. Charlotte looks confused as Dale walks away to pick up a weapon, telling her she is just a child who knows nothing. He tells her to attack him with everything she has. Charlotte angrily replies that she will definitely do that. Charlotte lunges with an attack, her rapier glowing with a green aura, but Dale blocks her attack with his sword. The clash continues between them with rapid strikes. Dale continues to block her successive attacks with ease. He analyzes her style, noting that every time he blocks her attack, she uses a quick wrist movement to launch a counterattack. He also notices she uses a minimal amount of aura. He concludes she is using aura to be able to control the rapier, which is too large for her body. He thinks that just as mages generate mana from circles, knights surpass their limits by gathering aura within their bodies. He blocks another strike, thinking to himself that blood will tell. As expected, blood doesn't lie, referring to her family legacy. The fierce fight continues, and Charlotte keeps attacking. Charlotte smiles confidently, thinking that if this is all his level is, then she has the upper hand. Charlotte recalls her memories. Her father died before she was born, and her mother told her stories about him every night. Her mother told her that she must, in his stead, protect the family. As the proud daughter of the sword god, she thinks about her sword that never stopped. Even when their homeland fell and their family collapsed, she wonders angrily, why is she being constantly blocked by this boy? Charlotte feels that something is wrong. She lunges again, but Dale stops her blade with a perfect parry. Stunning her, he makes a quick move, disarming her as her weapon flies out of her hand. Her sword falls to the ground and Charlotte drops to her knees. Wondering how she, the daughter of the sword god, cannot win, he approaches her. She looks at him with tears in her eyes, and he tells her the reason is that she is not the sword god. He explains that the pride she carries, as the daughter of the sword god, is not wrong, but he tells her sternly that, in her current state, she will never be able to protect her family from that man. He assures her that the sword master's, Brandenburg's blade is tens of times stronger even than his, Dale's in his current state. Charlotte cries hearing this reality. Charlotte asks, still broken, what she is supposed to do. Dale stands before her and declares that he, Dale of Saxon, I'll wager the name of the ducal family, and become the guardian of the Earl of Hart family. Charlotte is shocked to hear this. He continues his offer, explaining that, until the day she becomes strong enough to defeat that man Brandenburgg, he and House Saxon will become the shield that protects her. Charlotte asks him why. He replies that her sword, her talent is worth all this. He then asks her to swear to become a sword for him, and for House Saxon. Charlotte smiles slightly, saying she wouldn't refuse an offer like this. She kneels before him reverently, declaring in the name of Charlotte Earlhart, her oath on her honor as a knight. The narration comments that, although this may seem like a simple promise between two children, the determination it held was worthy of being called an oath. Later that day, in Duke Saxon's office, Dale informs his father that at Lady Earlhart's Vanessa's request, Miss Charlotte has become a lady-in-waiting maid for the ducal family. The Duke notes that Charlotte agreed immediately, which was unexpected, and asks him what happened between them. Dale replies that he made a promise in the name of House Saxon, that they would protect the Earl of Hart family. The Duke asks his son if he used the family name, just because he pitied her circumstances, which Dale denies. The Duke asks what Dale seeks to gain from this. Dale explains that Charlotte is the sole descendant of the sword god, and her talent, as expected, is exceptional. He reveals that he obtained an oath of loyalty from Miss Charlotte, and that what he seeks to gain is one sword god, to be used for the benefit of House Saxon. The Duke smiles and admires what Dale is planning. Dale thinks to himself with a cunning smile, that with the sole descendant of the sword god here, this is a good blow against that bastard Brandenburgg. The scene shifts to Mulberg, the former capital of Teutonia, where Count Brandenburgg shouts in rage, smashing his furniture. He angrily wonders how they dare to make the first move, while one of his subordinates apologizes. He berates them, calling them stupid fools, and wonders how they failed to catch one little brat. The subordinate explains that they sent assassins, but it seems they were killed before reaching Saxon lands. They assume Charlotte Earlhart is the one who finished them. Brandenburgg calls them useless fools and walks towards his holy sword. Durandal, he remembers days gone by. He addresses his holy sword Durandal. He describes the sword as his beautiful fiancée, and asks it to wait a little, vowing that he will bring the perfect lineage to succeed him, and use this sword no matter the cost. He orders the Thieves' Guild to be summoned, and someone sent to the Duchy of Saxon. He declares he will pay any price, even 1,000 gold pieces, to bring that filly Charlotte before him. A week passes since Charlotte swore her oath of fealty. She settles into the Duke's castle, noticing the stark difference from her home in Teutonia, and undergoes rigorous training as a lady-in-waiting. Bailey sparring with Dale also becomes part of her routine. Sir Helmet, who oversees the training, asks them if they are ready. Dale replies that he is ready, and Charlotte answers in the affirmative. Helmet smiles and announces the start of the duel. They immediately begin to clash. The training duel continues, with an exchange of rapid blows. The duel between Dale and Charlotte continues, and Sir Helmet watches them, thinking to himself. Helmet wonders if this is really a duel between children. He admits their level hasn't reached that of knights yet, but he senses a terrifying killing intent and speed coming from them. The duel intensifies, and Dale uses his cloak to distract Charlotte. Charlotte feels stressed, but doesn't let it stop her aiming a precise attack at Dale. Helmet suddenly intervenes, stopping Charlotte's attack, and also grabs Dale before he can counterattack. He praises their excellent performance and tells Lady Charlotte she did well. He dismisses his compliments and asks him seriously what she is lacking. He asks her if she knows the essence of using a rapier. She replies to Pierce. He denies this, explaining that the essence lies in the legs, meaning footwork. He explains that Dale managed to close the distance and avoid her thrust at the same time, and at that moment she should have retreated to create distance and look for another opportunity. He adds that with a rapier, the more the arm is bent and extended to apply force, the more the blade vibrates, making precise piercing difficult. Helmet concludes that she needs to rebuild her fundamentals. Charlotte gets angry hearing this. Helmet tells her he noticed earlier that her stance and footwork were unconventional and messy. Charlotte replies that the reason is she never had a proper teacher to guide her. Helmet smiles and tells her that, as long as he is here, he will have to fix her weird piercing stance. Charlotte gets angry at his description. Helmet laughs, admitting he was teasing her because she's so cute. Dale watches them thinking how quickly Charlotte will develop under the guidance of Helmet, one of the 7 swords of the continent, and decides he must also work hard, so she doesn't surpass him. Later, Dale reviews his magic training. He thinks that the process of building a mana circle is the same, feeling the mana flow around the heart, waiting for a stable path to form, and then engraving the magic ring shape. The problem is that this process can take decades. In a scene with his teacher, Sabia, she is surprised when Dale tells her he has already completed the second circle. He explains in his thoughts that the speed of mana rotation in this world is measured in RPM, revolutions per minute usually. First circle mages have a speed of 300 revolutions per minute. He reveals that his current speed is 2,000 revolutions per minute for the first circle, and about 400 revolutions per minute for the second circle, since the minimum required to expand the circle is 300 revolutions per minute. This means he has already met the requirements to form the third circle. He decides that since he has reached the second circle, he should try an experiment. He decides to try improving his ice bullet spell. He thinks that by strengthening the bullet's molecular bonds, he can increase its weight and hardness, and he will use a large caliber barrel to enhance its rotational force and speed. He casts the enhanced spell, Armor-Piercing Ice Bullet. He looks at the result, wondering how it was so easy to fire an armor-piercing bullet, and realizes that adding just one circle made a big difference. His teacher, Sabia, praises him, saying he is a fast learner. As expected, Dale thanks her and gives her the credit. Sabia thinks about recent events, from his rescue of the knight from the orcs, to his story with Lady Charlotte. She concludes that he is a child, who knows how to use his power correctly. She admits to herself that although this child's talent is frightening, he always gives her a reason to trust him, and that he truly is her student to be proud of. Sabia hugs Dale, and he thinks to himself that her physical contact is too spontaneous, and the situation is awkward. That dawn in the castle courtyard, Dale was still thinking about the situation, wondering if she just sees him as a child, but he quickly dismisses the thought, realizing this is no time for such ideas. At dawn one day, Dale decides to focus on his training in the castle courtyard, starting by creating an ice wall. He then tests a new spell he developed, Ice Bullet 12-gauge Buckshot, which shatters the ice wall. Then ice pellets ricochet everywhere. He uses a magic shield to block the ricocheting shots. He smiles at the successful experiment, thinking about trying slug rounds next time, but a voice interrupts him. It's Charlotte, who also came to train. Dale asks her if she is training too, and Charlotte confirms. She was practicing the steps Sir Helmet taught her. Dale notes that she seems to be enjoying learning the sword. Charlotte replies with hesitation and embarrassment. Charlotte suddenly apologizes to Dale for her selfish behavior. At their first meeting, expressing her regret for being rude to him, he jokes that what she did was more than just rude, but he smiles and tells her he'll make a special exception and forgive her, and asks her not to be so formal with him. Charlotte brightens up and agrees. Charlotte tells Dale that she likes the cold weather in the region, because it cools her down quickly. Even if she trains late, he smiles, thinking how happy he is to have someone else who shares the same thought. Meanwhile, the Duke and Duchess Elena watch the scene from a castle window. The Duchess comments that their son has grown up. The Duke asks her if she thinks they make a good pair. The Duchess replies that they will know with time. The Duchess thinks to herself that she must help her son be true to his feelings. Later, in the outskirts of the duchy, Duchess Elena oversees relief work in the slums. He explains in his thoughts that his mother distributes food and necessities weekly. He reveals that he and Charlotte joined her this year. Charlotte stops a young child who looks distressed. The child pleads for help, claiming his mother is in danger. The child grabs Charlotte's arm, begging her. Dale and Charlotte follow the child. While Dale thinks that something is suspicious, he notices they are moving away from the accompanying knights and heading towards a complex alley, and that the child asking Charlotte for help instead of the adults was strange from the beginning. Dale spots someone watching from a rooftop and realizes the child is from the Thieves' Guild. He is sure that Charlotte is the target. He wonders why the trap is so obvious. The child stops, tells them he'll go get his mother, and then runs off at that moment. Masked men surround Dale and Charlotte. One of them mocks the presence of nobles in such a dangerous place. One of the men clarifies that their business is with the little maid, Charlotte, and advises the young Lord Dale to stay away. Another man smiles as he waves a dagger, warning him that he might get hurt if he acts rashly. Dale stands before the thieves, announcing that he is Dale von Saxon, and he has sworn to protect the young lady of House Erlehart from thugs like them. The thief's leader, with green hair, scoffs at the young noble's chivalry. He adds that it would have been better if Dale had considered the time and place. He comments that it seems Dale needs to learn a little about the cruelty of the world. Charlotte whispers worriedly to Dale, telling him she left her sword behind. He reassures her and tells her not to be afraid. He thinks to himself that this is the perfect opportunity to test the new skill of his. Cloak of Shadow, under the pretext of self-defense. The thieves attacked Dale and Charlotte from all directions, trying to end things as quickly as possible. One of the thieves notices a strange wind. As Dale's shadows surround them, the leader shouts angrily at his men to get out of the way. Dale notes the leader's quick wit, assuming he is a high-ranking thief, and then launches his attack. He uses a new skill he acquired after reaching the second circle, where he implants a shadow creature as a parasite inside one of the thieves. The thief screams in pain as the shadow creature enters him. The leader wonders in terror what Dale is creating. The infected thief transforms into a grotesque, undead soldier, screaming, "I'm hungry." The leader orders his panicked men to kill that thing. He hesitates, realizing they are in a bind, and that one mistake could cost them their lives. He lunges into the attack himself. He boasts that in this alley, even if two oracles gathered, they couldn't stop his fangs. His glowing daggers, Dale easily blocks his attack using his shadows, and prepares a counterattack. The thief leader curses the situation. Dale unleashes a new spell, double-barreled 12-gauge buckshot. Multiple magic shots fire from his hand, hitting the leader directly. The leader is thrown backward by the force of the blow. As Charlotte watches the scene in shock, Dale stands in the middle of the alley, as the undead shadow soldier continues to attack another thief. He notes that the leader didn't die from one hit, assumes it's because of his aura-covered body. The wounded leader gets up, yelling that he's not finished yet, and charges screaming, "Die!" Dale unleashes his shadows, which cut the leader in half before he even gets close. The undead soldier screams, "I'm so hungry," as it tears apart another thief's body. After the battle ends, Dale approaches Charlotte, who is sitting on the ground, and asks her if she was hurt. She replies, "No." Dale takes Charlotte's hand. As one of the wounded thieves groans on the ground, the thief tries to escape, so Dale shoots him in the foot with an ice bullet. The last thief begs him for help. Dale summons the shadow creature back to him. The thief offers to tell him everything he knows. In exchange for his life, Dale asks him if he means everything he knows. The thief desperately confirms. Dale readies a spell, telling him coldly that he's not particularly interested. He unleashes a magical explosion that finishes off the last thief. As Charlotte stands shocked, he tells her that this is the true face of the Duchy of Saxon, that people fear, but it is also the power that will protect her. He asks her if she is scared after seeing this. She admits she is a little scared, but she quickly adds that it's okay, because he did it to protect her. She repeats the vow she made that day. If his family becomes the shield that protects her family, she will repay him in the future by becoming a sword, to be used for him. But she quickly adds that it's okay, because he did it to protect her, and declares that she will become stronger. He watches her, thinking to himself that his acceptance of Charlotte was partly due to the guilt he carries towards Sir Battle, whom he killed in his past life. Therefore her volunteering to become his sword carried a much greater meaning than he could have imagined. Meanwhile, in Count Brandenburg's castle, the Count curses the situation as he reads a letter. The letter was an invitation to Saxon Castle, essentially a summons from the Black Duke, Duke of Saxon, to hold him accountable for the attempted kidnapping incident. Brandenburg realizes that even as the Empire's holy sword, he had no choice but to comply. A few days later, Count Brandenburg arrives at Saxon Castle. The Duke, sitting on his throne with Dale beside him, welcomes him, commenting on his difficult journey. He adds that he didn't expect him to arrive so quickly, and apologizes for the somewhat lacking welcome. Brandenburg replies, sarcastically, that there is nothing more urgent than a summons from the Duke. He thinks to himself angrily, calling Dale and Charlotte cunning little brats. The Duke continues, noting that there is great concern within the Empire about the recent daylight kidnapping attempt in the Duke's lands. He adds that he can guess why he was summoned. He wonders contemptuously how he, the Emperor's loyal sword, could be involved in such an indecent matter. As he speaks, a dense, dark aura begins to emanate from the Duke and spread through the hall. Brandenburg is startled. One of his followers asks, "Why is there wind as shadows surround them?" Count Brandenburg's knights are terrified. As the shadows begin to gradually devour them, the knights scream for help from the Count. As Brandenburg realizes, his Holy Magdalena Knight order has been easily defeated. Without any resistance, he recognizes the powerful dark magic. It is Duke Saxon casting a high-level dark spell called Ryle's Tempest. The Duke addresses Count Brandenburg, the Sword of Sanctity, and orders him to kneel and stay still. Brandenburg protests angrily, asking what the Duke is doing. The Duke replies coolly, asking if he didn't hear him. He then warns him that there won't be a next time. Brandenburg curses the situation silently, as he is forced to kneel in fear of the Duke's magical aura. He thinks that, even though the Black Duke has a reason for what he's doing, he never expected it to come to this level of humiliation. The Duke, sitting on his throne, reminds him that he summoned him for the sake of peace. He then issues a direct threat, vowing to slaughter every member of the Brandenburg family. If the Count ever again tries to harm the children of Saxon, he expresses his sincere hope that the Count will take this warning seriously. He suddenly changes his tone, inviting the exhausted Count to warm himself as a sarcastic gesture. The angry Brandenburg replies that he is grateful for the Duke's generosity, but apologizes that, due to circumstances, it is difficult for him to stay any longer. The Duke dismisses him, wishing him a safe journey back. Dale, who was present, watches the situation, thinking that Brandenburg is one of the Emperor's most loyal followers, and what his father just did to this man, who is close to the Emperor's faction, will become the fuse that will shake the entire empire. Dale realizes that it will start as a small spark, but it won't take long to turn into a flame, and he thinks that their role will be the one to sever the head of the Sword of Sanctity. By the time the news of the Sword of Sanctity, kneeling before the Black Duke, had spread, the Duke was in his office. The Duke and teacher Sabia are standing. Sabia is horrified. The Duke explains that the corpses before her belong to the thieves, guild members who attacked Dale. He confirms that Dale is responsible for all of this. She notes the gruesome scene, a corpse that vomited its entrails, another crushed and riddled with holes, and for the first time she begins to question if her teachings, Dale, were wrong. He explains that, as she can see, in order to guide Dale's talent properly, they need her wisdom. Therefore, he offers her the position of chief advisor. The shocked Sabia realizes this means she is being asked to become a member of the Saxon family, not just a teacher. He explains that Dale relies on her greatly, and that guiding him is beyond his power alone. He asserts that things will be different if she agrees to help them. She agrees, saying she understands. Teacher Sabia tells him she is aware that her task of knowing how that child, Dale, sees this world has now become more critical than ever. Time passes. Dale's 10th birthday arrives in a lavish banquet hall. The different thing about this year's birthday party was the presence of people from the Emperor's faction. As well, among those present, was a particularly prominent figure. Marquis Ulysses is welcomed, who in turn steps forward to greet the young Lord Dale, expressing his pleasure in meeting him. Meanwhile, the guests at the party were expressing their admiration for the fine food, praising the generosity of Duke Saxon. They commented that this luxury was unbelievable for being in the heart of the north, and that their previous concerns about the duchy being too far from the empire were misplaced. Dale watches the situation, thinking that these are the central nobles from the imperial capital, the core of the emperor's faction, and the greatest power under his name. He realizes the reason for their coming to this party is perfectly clear. It's an implicit warning. It's a message from the imperial family that they will not stand idly by regarding the humiliation inflicted upon the Sword of Sanctity, Count Brandenburg, and now, standing before him, is the messenger, who understands this message perfectly clearly. Marquis Elise, the Marquis studies Dale, saying, "So this is the young Lord Dale." Marquis Ulysses introduces himself to Dale, identifying himself by his title. The Crimson Lord Dale thinks about the Marquis's identity. He is the head of the Red Magic Tower, the tower that pursues fire and fury, and order through power. The mages of this tower follow the might is right spirit, prevalent in the Empire, and they did not hesitate to become tools to carry out the Empire's ambitions. He remembers from his past life that he underwent all sorts of forced magical modifications at the hands of the Red Tower mages. Marquis Ulysses addresses Dale, saying he has heard about the miracle genius of the ducal family, who possesses magical talent unrivaled in the Empire. He continues mentioning the rumors that Dale, at only 9 years old, wiped out a horde of orcs to protect one of the family's knights. He concludes by saying Dale is truly the Duke's son. Dale smiles faintly. He thanks him politely and wishes him an enjoyable time. He walks away thinking how exhausting it is to receive birthday congratulations this way. Every year, he thinks that he would rather be training with Charlotte, but her official status as a lady-in-waiting maid helping his mother prevents that. More importantly, he realizes how dangerous it would be for the sword god's daughter, Charlotte, to be seen practicing swordsmanship. Suddenly he hears a scream and a man's voice, ordering a damned maid to stay still. He wonders where the scream came from. Dale follows the sound to find a man attacking a maid, who is on the floor begging him to leave her alone, reminding him that she serves House Saxon. The fat man, one of the party guests, yells at her, wondering how a lowly maid dares to speak the Duke's family name. He continues his complaint, saying it's the young lord's birthday, and everyone is having fun. He adds that instead of wasting time on this nonsense party, it's better to play with a girl. He threatens the maid Eve, that he will slaughter her if she resists anymore. As the man orders the maid to submit to him, Dale intervenes, asking him coldly, "What do you think you're doing?" The man is shocked upon seeing the young Lord Dale, and gets flustered, wondering what Dale is doing here. trying to worm his way out of the situation. The fat man named Pietro tries to wriggle out of the situation, rudely asking him if he has ever enjoyed a woman. Given that he is still young, he offers to teach him personally, all while holding the trembling maid Eve, and threatening her with a knife. Dale ignores his provocation and reassures Eve not to worry. He tells her that he will save her soon. He thinks to himself that since this world is a class-based society, Pietro would never imagine that he, a noble, would attack him. An Imperial guest, he exploits this hesitation and casts an ice spell. Hitting Pietro, Pietro falls to the ground, as Dale thinks that he has no intention of backing down recklessly. But he also realizes that attacking the Emperor's man is not a good option. Pietro gets up angrily, asking him the meaning of this. Dale coldly orders him to kneel. He yells at the shocked Pietro, repeating his command to kneel and apologize to Miss Eve. He clarifies that Miss Eve is one of the people of House Saxon. Pietro protests, reminding him that he is here on behalf of His Majesty the Emperor, and that insulting him to protect a lowly maid is tantamount to... Dale cuts him off with a sarcastic question. Does His Majesty the Emperor have a hobby of raping other people's maids? Pietro is shocked and accuses him of daring to say such a thing. At that moment, Duke Jackson, Marquis Ulisse, and the rest of the guests arrive. Marquis Ulisse comments with a smile that this is an interesting spectacle. The Duke asks his son Dale about the cause of this commotion. Dale explains that this man, Pietro, was trying to assault a maid of House Saxon. One of the nobles asks Dale sarcastically if he is treating Sir Pietro with such contempt for such a trivial reason. Pietro seizes the opportunity and complains to the Duke about the immature young lord. Dale interrupts him sternly, asking, "Who allowed you to stand?" He addresses the guests, explaining that the nobles from the Imperial capital are charged with the duty of representing the Emperor. However, this man, Pietro, tried to tarnish the Emperor's reputation by assaulting a lowly maid. For this reason, he could not tolerate Sir Pietro's disgraceful behavior. Marquis Ulisse laughs, commenting that the young lord's wit is a masterpiece, and confirms that his words are absolutely correct. He adds, "How dare someone representing His Majesty try to assault a mere, lowly maid?" He calls his attendant to Lara and orders him to kill this insect. Pietro is shocked and screams for help. Ulysses launches a fire attack. Pietro screams in pain as he burns. Ulysses declares that the young lord's words are 100% correct, and that it is his duty to burn the insects who try to insult the Imperial family. And the Empire Marquis Ulysses concludes the scene, expressing his high hopes for young Lord Dale's future. After the commotion died down, the Emperor's men left, and peace returned once again to Duke Saxon's castle. Afterward, one morning, the maid Eve wakes the young Lord Dale. He thanks her and notices her hesitation, asking if there is something she wants to say. Eve hesitantly thanks him, expressing how proud she is to serve him. He wonders to himself why she hesitated just to say that, thinking that although he has been in this world for a long time, he is still not used to this kind of respect, but he must get used to it. He thanks Eve again. He thinks that as the eldest son of House Saxon, he understands the weight of this name, and will use everything he has to bring down the Empire. Later, the Duke summons his son Dale to his office. The Duke tells him he thinks he is a brilliant child, but his recent actions have been strange. He asks him why Dale surprises him by asking if he knew that if the hero from another world hadn't died in his fight against the sword god, Lord Battle, the next target of the hero sword would have been the Duchy of Saxon itself. The Duke is shocked to hear this. The Duke comments that this is a bold statement, and asks what makes him so sure. Dale hesitates, thinking to himself that the reason is, he heard in his past life that the Empire was plotting against House Saxon. He quickly changes his answer in his thoughts, explaining to his father in reality that the Empire chose to dispose of the hero's power because they feared this hunting dog would get out of control. He adds that in the past, despite the hero defeating the Demon King, the Empire did not completely eradicate the darkness in the Demon King's lands. Instead, it issued a ridiculous order for the Saxons to reclaim those lands and turn them into Imperial territory, forcing them to drain their resources, and even granting those lands to the Duke as a thief. Dale concludes that, as long as the darkness in that land has not completely disappeared, their drain will never stop. Furthermore, the people of the Empire and those outside the North point fingers at them, calling them the Clan of Darkness. For this reason, just as the Empire disposed of the hero, it will try to eliminate the internal threat, the Saxons, that threatens them. The Duke asks his son in amazement how he knew about the hero being disposed of. Dale replies that this is just his own guess, based on his readings in the archives, because the whole thing doesn't seem logical. The official narrative states that the hero died an honorable death after a fierce battle with the sword god Lord Battle, Dale thinks to himself that his father must be shocked, that he figured out the truth, which only a select few know, just by reading books. Dale continues his analysis, saying that if his guess is correct, then the Empire's justice is nothing but the justice of a tyrant, who uses violence to rob weak nations. The Duke looks at his son, thinking that this child possesses the wisdom of ages. He asks him for his opinion. What path should House Saxon take? Dale boldly replies that House Saxon can never coexist with the Empire, and therefore they must destroy the Empire. The Duke is severely shocked by this declaration. He calls his name seriously, and asks him seriously if he realizes what he is saying. Dale clarifies that he is not suggesting starting a rebellion now. He is talking about 10 years from now. The Duke wonders 10 years. Dale continues his explanation to his father, clarifying that even at present, there are still resistance forces throughout the continent that desire independence. There are also lords like Duke Saxon himself, who fear the Empire will turn its sword against them. He adds that the economy is shrinking, the number of bandits is increasing day by day, and the scars of war are getting worse. Despite the continent's unification being complete, he suggests that until the right time comes, after 10 years, they must build their strength to protect their home from the Empire. He suggests achieving this by helping the active resistance forces in various regions. Dale continues to explain his entire plan to bring down the Empire. He continues explaining until the sun begins to set, then asks his father for his opinion. The Duke laughs, expressing that the depth of his son's talent is immeasurable. He admits that Dale can see a much farther scene than he can perceive. He expresses his immense pride in Dale being his son. He tells him that, from now on, he will not treat him just as his eldest son or as a 10-year-old child, but will treat him with the respect due to the future head, who will lead House Saxon. Dale is moved to hear this. The Duke affirms that, as one head to another, he will listen to his words and respect them. Dale realizes that this is the moment he has been waiting for. It is the right to move the power of House Saxon with his own hands. The Duke asks his son to speak, without hesitation, about the decision he will make at this very moment. For their family, Dale smiles, and reminds his father that he promised to treat him as an equal head. Based on that, he requests permission to participate in the Tower trial in Necropolis. The Duke is shocked to hear this request. The narration explains that the Tower trial is a type of ranking game, to determine the hierarchy among mages, who face the Magic Tower's guardians. Those who defeat high-level guardians earn the right to become elders of the tower, and the one person who stands at the top of the tower is granted the title of Tower Master. The Duke comments on his son's request, reminding him that the Tower trial is an extremely dangerous place, where he could easily lose his life. He adds that it is too early for Dale, who hasn't even completed the third circle, to attempt it, but Dale replies confidently that he will reach it the third circle. Soon the Duke points out that reaching the third circle usually doesn't happen until the mid-20 seconds, and even for Dale, who has already mastered the second, it's still difficult. Dale insists, explaining that this is a decision for him, his father, and for House Saxon. When his father asks what he means, he explains that if he proves himself through the trial, his father's, the Duke's status, will be further solidified. Thanks to an heir like him, he will also gain a trustworthy reputation. Instead of just being the subject of enthusiasts' gossip, the Duke asks him if this is the reason he wants to take the trial. Dale confirms it. The Duke smiles, telling him he understands, and will leave the judgment to him. Dale rejoices and promises his father he will prove it to him. A few days later, the Duke and Dale arrive in the City of the Dead, Necropolis. The massive door opens, and the Black Duke is received with all respect by those present. Dale yawns, thinking that maybe he overdid it this time, referring to his exhaustion. The people in Necropolis notice the arrival of Duke Saxon and Lord Dale. One wonders if the rumors are true that Dale is a magical genius, the likes of which the Empire has never seen, while another comments that Dale looks miserable, and tells him not to doubt his words. The whispers continue among the crowd, as one points out, sarcastically, that he heard Dale's swordsmanship rivals the Duke's knights calling it pathetic. Felix, the top graduate of the academy, declares that he is the one who deserves to win this test, not the duchy's brat Dale, who looks weak. Dale and his father arrive at the tower. A woman named Iris greets them, paying her respects to the Tower Master. The Duke greets Iris, who in turn offers her loyalty to Lord Dale. It is revealed that Iris is an elder of the tower, and the Secretary General, who oversees the tower's affairs in the Black Duke's absence. The Duke tells his son that Iris will assist him during the test, and he agrees. He tells her he will be in her care. She replies, of course, and asks him to follow her. Iris leads Dale to a huge hall, explaining that 59 graduates from the academy will be taking the test. With him, Dale looks out over the hall full of competitors. Iris welcomes everyone, introducing herself as the Secretary General. She begins to explain the first floor test of the Black Magic Tower, asking everyone to check the life point pendants around their necks. She explains that the test is a battle royale to steal life points. Each pendant contains a shield, magic for protection, and 1 life point. If a contestant lands a valid hit on an opponent, using the corpses scattered in the area, the opponent's pendant will be destroyed. The shield will activate, and they will be eliminated. The successful attacker will receive an extra point, and anyone who collects 3 points qualifies for the next floor. Finally, the use of artifacts is prohibited and considered cheating, resulting in immediate disqualification. Dale thinks to himself that these rules are designed to filter out the beginners quickly. The contestants whisper about Dale, calling him a monster. I wonder how he reached the 3rd circle at such an age. Felix suggests they team up to take down that monster. First, someone wonders about the safety of attacking the young lord. Felix dismisses this concern, asserting they are all equal competitors. Once the test begins, Dale overhears him, praises their confidence, and challenges them in his mind to see if they are all talk. Iris announces the start of the test. The contestants immediately begin raising the corpses. As undead soldiers, Felix notices Dale hasn't moved, so he sends his undead soldier straight at him, swinging its sword down. Felix is shocked when he sees Dale's undead soldier block the attack. The attacker is shocked, realizing Dale is using water magic. His soldier freezes. He wonders if he possesses dual affinity, the ability to use 2 types of magic. As his soldier attacks his undead soldier, the contestant yells in anger. As his undead soldier shatters against his soldier, another undead soldier attacks Dale's soldier, but the attack is blocked. Dale calmly explains that the attack is useless, because he protected his soldier with an ice shield. Felix yells angrily, accusing him of cheating and breaking the rules by using water magic. Felix asserts that the rules prohibit using any magic, other than dark magic, raising and enhancing the undead. Dale coolly asks, "Is that so?" He directs his question to Iris, the observer asking if there is really a rule, stating that the undead can only be enhanced with dark magic. Iris remains silent. Dale concludes that since the test wasn't stopped, he is in the right. Felix curses in frustration. Felix, the top graduate, yells at his colleagues, ordering them to block Dale's ice-enhanced undead soldier, while they target Dale directly. He asserts that he is just one opponent, and they can overwhelm him with their numbers. Dale thinks to himself that the use of artifacts is also forbidden. In that case, he decides to fight himself and rushes towards the attacking undead. He gracefully dodges their attacks, and snatches a sword from one of the undead soldiers. Then he hits it with a punch enhanced with black magic. Then he cuts down another undead with ease. One of the contestants is shocked, wondering how his undead soldier was cut so easily. Felix thinks Dale's sword is not ordinary. Iris, the observer, notes that Dale reconfigured the bones to increase the sword's durability. Dale continues to fight, and another undead soldier attacks him. He leaps into the air and brings his sword down on the undead soldier, leaving Felix shocked, having lost all his soldiers. Felix wonders in terror if it's logical for a mage to be this skilled with a sword. Dale advances towards the broken Felix, who begs him for mercy. Dale mocks him, telling him he won't actually die because of the protective pendant. He swings his sword at Felix's head. Felix is defeated, his pendant destroyed, calling him a monster. Iris stands to announce the results. She declares that Lord Dale is the sole survivor who passed the test, with 60 life points, the points of all competitors. Dale thinks to himself that this place will be his first step, and that everyone should watch him closely. The scene shifts to the 2nd floor of the tower trial, a test requiring the defeat of the Guardian Flesh Golem. He explains in his thoughts that usually, the survivors from the 1st floor team up to defeat this Guardian, but he eliminated them all, so he is alone. And unlike the 1st floor, all types of magic are allowed on this floor, and although the no artifacts rule is still in effect, he deems this more than enough. He considers this an opportunity to form the 3rd circle, and test his true potential. The golem attacks Dale, but he dodges the attack and launches an attack, injuring the golem's arm. The golem is shocked. He smiles and begins to cast a new spell, Accelerated Decay. Iris, the observer, notes that the magic the young lord is casting is not an ordinary spell. The golem's body corrodes from the magic, and Iris wonders why Dale chose to corrupt the target, instead of dismembering it. Dale contemplates the accelerated decay magic he cast on the golem, thinking that in his past life, biochemical warfare was a key strategy, alongside firearms when facing monsters. He wonders, wiping blood from his face, if the observers, like Iris, realize that the horrors of biochemical warfare are now being expressed through black magic. On that day, Dale completed the trial, setting a record by reaching the 10th floor, and was granted 4 days of rest before the 11th floor began. In the meantime, to recover from the unprecedented massacre that occurred on the first floor, caused by Dale, a rare retest was granted to the 59 other contestants. That night, after the trial ended, Dale was standing alone by a fountain. Teacher Sabia calls out to him, congratulating him on his outstanding performance in the trial. He thanks her, attributing his success to what she taught him. He then surprises her by asking if she would like to go on a date with him. He clarifies that there is a festival being held in the city. Sabia agrees to go. She thinks that he is still too young to truly understand the meaning of a date, while he thinks to himself with a sly smile that this is what they mean by having a dark heart. They arrive at the Necropolis City Festival, full of celebrations and fireworks. Sabia asks Dale if he isn't tired after the arduous trial. He replies, no. He adds that he has a few days before the next trial. Silence falls between them, and Dale comments that the moon looks beautiful tonight. She agrees. He thinks about how difficult it is to keep the conversation going. He thinks that silence with Sabia was never awkward, perhaps because she always trusted him completely, and for that reason, he felt he wanted to become closer to her. He remembers the past few days. He succeeded in reaching the third circle. At that time, he encountered what Sabia always talked about, the scenery of the mind to reach the third circle. He had to surpass his limits by releasing mana, exceeding the second circle's capacity, known as mana overflow. As he was doing this, he suddenly found himself in a strange place. Wondering where he was, he hears the echo of Sabia's voice, telling him he can't help but reveal the scenery of his mind. He realizes he is in his mental world, the world of enlightenment. He realizes that his world was empty from the beginning, and in that void, Teacher Sabia was the only one who reached out her hand to him. Back at the festival, Dale looks at Sabia and thinks that maybe this is why he wants the teacher, who illuminated his world. He suddenly declares, I love you. Sabia is shocked and asks him what he said. He repeats his confession. Sabia smiles, gently hugs him, and tells him she understands, and that she is also very fond of him. He thanks her, thinking that living a second life really has its perks. A few days later, on the day of the 11th floor trial, Dale thinks that nothing has developed between him and Sabia. After that confession, he guesses. She probably considered it just a childish crush. From a 10-year-old boy, he could do nothing but focus on the next trial. Iris explains that this time the test is a one-on-one magic duel, where the winner ascends to the 12th floor. Dale stands opposite his opponent, who introduces himself as Albert Rosenheim, a third circle master. He warns Dale that he won't go easy on him just because he's a child. Dale explains in his thoughts that, in this 11th floor trial, the use of full magical power is allowed, and since the artifact restrictions have also been lifted, the life point pendant does not fully guarantee the contestant's safety. Albert, Dale's opponent, thinks that now that the restrictions are removed, he will show Dale the overwhelming gap between them. With his full power, he warns him to stay sharp in this duel. He tells him that he is nothing like the fledgling academy graduates Dale fought before, and that the young lord's confidence ends here. He launches a dark arrow attack, firing a volley of magic arrows at Dale. He challenges him to block this attack. He continues his mockery, saying Dale's confidence won't get him any further, and launches another wave of attacks. Dale gracefully dodges the attacks. Dale thinks that Albert cheated by launching an offensive spell before the duel officially started, yet no one stopped the fight. Concluding they are curious to see his abilities, he thinks that this is a world built on absolute merit. He curses the mages silently, while Albert seizes the opportunity. Albert shouts, ordering his creations to arise and swear eternal obedience to him, and animates the bloodthirsty spawn of darkness. Dale looks at the scene with boredom, thinking to himself that he's embarrassed just watching this, wondering where his opponent learned this ridiculous chant. However, he admits that Albert's skill is better than those beginners. Dale continues to dodge the attacks of the undead Albert summons. This angers Albert, who asks him how long he plans to keep dodging, asserting that he can't win by just running away. He asks if this is all he has, and orders one of his undead soldiers to self-destruct. He declares that victory is his. Suddenly Albert realizes Dale has disappeared, wondering since when and where did he go. Dale appears behind him, asking sarcastically if he doesn't think cheating against a child is a bit cowardly. Albert looks confused. Dale admits his surprise attack was clever, and uses spectral form skill from the Cloak of Shadow. He warns his opponent that he is still far from defeating him. Meanwhile, Dale's shadow creatures begin to hum, expressing their intense hunger, and asking if they can eat Albert. He smiles and allows them to go ahead, but warns them not to overeat. The shadows attack Albert, who screams in pain. Dale comments that the shadows seem a bit excited, because they were hungry. Albert begs for mercy. Dale orders the shadows to pull back. Albert falls unconscious, and Iris declares Dale the winner of the first round. Dale asks who the next mage for the second round is. The next contestant forfeits, saying he just wants to live. The count for the third round begins. From that moment on, until the final match, Dale advanced automatically by forfeit, except for one bout that required a fight. After that, Dale refined and mastered his 3 magic circles, and began defeating the floor guardians one by one. By the time he reached the 20th floor, an opponent worthy of his level finally appeared. The guardian was the Headless Knight. This knight, personally crafted by a Black Tower elder, was an incomparable foe to what came before. The observers comment that even for the young lord, this might be the limit. Dale smiles, thinking that things going so predictably would be boring. The battle between Dale and the Headless Knight begins. The spectators watch in astonishment, wondering what is happening. Everyone is stunned when they find the Headless Knight kneeling before Dale. Dale orders him to finish yourself. The Headless Knight immediately stabs itself and falls destroyed. Dale thinks that this loyalty, which made the knight abandon its role as a guardian, is impressive. He then realizes he might have gone a bit too far, and overplayed his hand. He understands why the spectators are shocked. For a creation the knight, to betray its master the Tower Elder, and declare loyalty to him, Dale, meant that he had reached a level comparable to a Black Tower Elder himself, which he hadn't intended to reveal. He decides he has proven enough, and it's time to go back. He heads for the exit. The observers ask him why he is leaving. He thinks that even if he could continue climbing, there is a line he cannot cross. He realizes that if he climbs higher, he will transcend the realm of monsters, and become something unknowable. And with that, Dale's trial ended. With the end of Dale's trial, the tower trials themselves ended. Upon the arrival of the Tower Master and his son Dale, the entire Black Tower offered a military salute. Not just the noble families in Saxon, but every mage in the Black Tower, including the elders, bowed to the Duke and his son. Thanks to Dale's overwhelming achievements, the entire northern region slowly began to unite. In the Duchy of Saxon in the Northern Empire, knights are shown fighting and cheering for the young lord, Dale, and for House Saxon. After safely completing the tower trial, Dale received an order from his father, the Duke, to lead a campaign against an orc horde. This was a ridiculously heavy responsibility for a 10-year-old, yet not a single person doubted his ability as a commander. As the legitimate heir to the Black Duke, Dale gradually began to unite the entire northern region. Later, Dale reports to his father announcing they have eliminated 145 orcs. The Duke asks about the knight casualties. Dale replies that there are 3 lightly injured, no other losses. The Duke asks if he used magic to protect them. Dale denies this, asserting the credit goes to the swords of House Saxon alone. The Duke smiles and praises his work. Sir Helmet comments to the Duke that the young lord has already gotten used to leading a regiment-sized knight unit. Dale humbly replies that the credit all goes to Sir Helmet's teachings. Sir Helmet praises him, acknowledging that Dale learned swordsmanship, strategy, tactics, and the art of war from him. He predicts that, at this rate, the day when Dale leads his own territory in a domain war is not far off. Dale smiles at the thought of a domain war, but always welcoming any new stage. The scene shifts to Dale and Charlotte sparring. Charlotte shouts as she lunges. They exchange rapid blows. The fierce clash between them continues. Dale ends the training, commenting that Charlotte's level has improved a little. Charlotte replies, annoyed that he talks about it like it doesn't concern him. He asks if he teased her too much. She reminds him that he became a 3rd circle mage, and passed the 20th floor of the tower trial. She adds that since then, she has heard nothing but constant praise for young Lord Dale, and asks if he isn't sick of it. He reassures her not to worry too much. He encourages her that she will become stronger too. He thinks to himself that considering she is only 10, Charlotte's talent is far from ordinary. Charlotte gets angry and yells at him not to treat her like a child. He replies that she is a child. She retorts that he's a child too. He smiles and tells her that he is already an adult, referring to his consciousness from his past life. Later, Sir Helmet begins a new lesson with Dale. He explains that today he will teach him the hammer and anvil tactic, and explains that the tactic relies on the cavalry breaking through the enemy's flank and encircling them, while the infantry blocks the counterattack of the enemy cavalry. He emphasizes that this is the key, and the tactic's name is inspired by the process of striking metal on an anvil. With a hammer, Dale concludes that this tactic is only possible thanks to the existence of the Black Cavalry. He thinks to himself that regardless of the world, the nature of war doesn't change much. Helmet asks him about the progress of Charlotte's training. Dale replies that her training is splendid, though not comparable to Dale's training. He explains that her swordsmanship fundamentals have taken shape, and she will soon begin learning aura techniques and the Saxon family's sword style. But he mentions there is one concern. Dale interrupts him, guessing. The concern is about the compatibility between Charlotte and their sword style. The narration explains that, Just as mages refine mana into magic through their circles, knights can also refine mana and store it as aura, through internal discipline, and just as mages form towers, knights form orders to pass on their swordsmanship legacy. Among these are the Black Cavalry, belonging to the Knight Raven Order of the Northern Saxon family, whose style relies on overwhelming power. The problem is that Charlotte's style relies on speed and agility. With her current talent, she might barely manage to reach the ranks of the Seven Swords, but she will never reach the rank of the First Sword, the position her father used to hold, or the person who was nicknamed the Sword of Fleurs. Sir Helmet continues expressing his regret that the Sword of Fleurs style completely disappeared. With the fall of the Night Kingdom, Dale wonders to himself if this style has really vanished from the world, as Dale was steadily building his reputation through arduous training schedules and monster subjugations. The time finally came to prove the results of this training. The Duke receives a messenger and looks stunned by what he hears. The messenger confirms that the neighboring Baron Voker claims ownership of the Duke's copper mine and has formally requested a domain war. Dale thinks that, although boundaries in this world aren't perfectly clear, it's reckless for a low-ranking noble Baron to pick a fight with a high-ranking noble. The messenger adds that if the Duke refuses to concede the mine and agrees to the war, the Archduke Brandenburg has declared his support for the Baron's claim, in exchange for a share of the copper mine's profits. And it won't stop there. Brandenburg will send his St. Magdalena order to support the Baron. Dale immediately understands what is happening, realizing that Brandenburg has not forgotten the humiliation he suffered at his father's hands, and this is his way of retaliating and getting revenge.